Hey everyone, welcome to the presentation on resistance training. So first we're going to talk about what resistance training is, what the benefits are to doing it, what the difference is between strength and endurance, and for that matter, general fitness. Then we talk about the FITT prescription and a couple details and training principles. So, what is resistance training? Well, we know it's a type of exercise, yeah. And we know that exercise is a planned physical activity with the goal of making you fit. So resistance training is a type of exercise that involves resistance. Okay, pretty straightforward, but this resistance doesn't necessarily have to come from weights. A lot of people think that resistance training is just weightlifting, and it can be, but it can also come from your own body weight, in the example of calisthenics and different exercises like that. In fact, it doesn't really matter where the resistance comes from, as long as your muscles can work against it, and that can allow you to develop the training effect that you're after. So why bother with resistance training? What's the big deal? Well, it can lead to an increase in muscle mass, far greater than that of Photoshop. It can lead to an increase in power and strength, and just your ability to interact with the physical world in which you live in an effective way. It can boost your metabolism very much so, quite drastically, and your energy levels. Not to mention, help you out with your bone health by increasing your bone density so that can decrease or delay the onset of osteoporosis. It can also boost your self-esteem. And with sort of some peripheral benefits, with the benefits from resistance training that can give you the musculature necessary to maintain proper posture, as well as improve your balance, and even your coordination. It can also, and very significantly, increase your athletic performance. Boom! Not to mention boosting your immune system, decreasing the onset of injury, or the likelihood of injury, and decreasing pain. Last but not least, it can play a big role in stress management, and much more. But how? Well, we're going to talk about how, but before we talk about how, we got to understand the different ideas or different goals. So, what are you training for? That's an important question to ask yourself. If you're training for general fitness, we're going to follow a specific protocol. And if you're training for performance, then we'll follow a different protocol. So, let's take a quick look at the two. General fitness is everything that fits into the category of losing weight, gaining muscle, and just feeling better. Sort of your health as a main goal. Performance, on the other hand, can often be separated into two categories. You're either training for strength or for endurance. Strength is defined as your ability to exert one maximum load of effort, whereas endurance is a sub-maximal load many times or over a period of time. For example, it's the end of the semester, you're cleaning out your locker, you got a ton of stuff to bring home, it's pretty heavy, you carry it all the way home. That's what, strength or endurance? Well, that would be endurance, because you're doing it over a period of time. And you could carry even heavier stuff if it was a much shorter period of time, but you're carrying sort of the sub-maximal, so not your maximum, over an extended period of time. So that's endurance. Then you get home, you kick down your doorway to your room because your hands are full, and you're lucky enough to have a bunk bed, and you want to put all the stuff on the top bunk of your bunk bed, and so you lift it all up. It's pretty heavy, and in one clean movement, you put it all up there. What would that be? Would that be strength or endurance? Well, that might be a strength in that case, because you're doing one movement of sort of maximum exertion. So that gives you an idea of the distinction between the two. So here's our FITT chart, and it's a bit more complicated than it's been in previous components of physical fitness because we've got these different categories here. But you'll see the distinction's only made in one of the aspects. So for frequency, it's the same for everything. 2 to 3 times a week is the recommended frequency for resistance training, and we're talking about full body workouts. So whether you're training for muscular strength, muscular endurance, or general fitness, which would be sort of a mix of the two, you want to be training about 2 to 3 times a week. Now, if you want to be training for bodybuilding, I didn't put that on the chart, but bodybuilding sometimes, or traditionally in bodybuilding communities, people work out almost every day. And I'll explain later on sort of how you can make that happen. It's that you don't do a full body workout. You focus on specific muscle groups one day and then a different muscle group the next day, so you never do sort of the same thing 2 days in a row. You can do cardio every day, but right now we're talking about resistance training. Now the intensity, how hard or how heavy, Well, as hard or as heavy as you possibly can while maintaining proper form and finishing your sets. So, how many sets? What do I need to do? And this is where we have some sort of variance between the three different categories. If you're training for muscular strength, you're looking at doing anywhere between 3 to 6 sets of 1 to 6 reps. Reps is short for repetitions, so that's how many times you repeat a specific movement. And sets are how many chunks of those repetitions you do. For example, if I do a specific movement, let's say I jump up onto a box, and I do that 5 times. Then I take a little break, I go get a sip of water, I walk around a bit, I come back, and then I go for my second set, I do it another 5 times. That would have been 2 sets of 5 reps. So that's for muscular strength. Muscular endurance, on the other hand, still your 3 to 6 sets, but now we're going 12 to 20 reps, so a lot more repetitions. Now obviously, if you're following the intensity properly and you're doing it as hard or as heavy as you possibly can while maintaining proper form and finishing your sets, you'll be lifting lighter weights if you're training for endurance, because you have to go upwards of 12 repetitions, whereas in muscular strength, the max that you'll be going for is 6. Now, if you don't have a performance goal and you just want to train to feel better and put on some muscle and lose some weight, then you're looking at sort of a mix between the two. And that ends up being sort of 1 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps. And this is a very typical sort of gym prescription, would be 4 to 10 repetitions. 4 sets of 10 repetitions of a specific movement. Now, if you're trying to do bodybuilding and you want to gain mass, or what you're looking for is hypertrophy, which is a fancy word for sort of mass gain in mass, then you're following a little bit of a different protocol, a little similar to general fitness, but usually a little bit more sets, a little bit more reps, and a little bit lighter weight. Because the goal when you're doing bodybuilding is, and this is a little extra detail that you don't have to remember, is to get that hypertrophy. And there are 2 different types of hypertrophy. There's myofibrillar hypertrophy and sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Now in bodybuilding, you're mainly trying to trigger sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, which is in some respects a less functional type of hypertrophy, but it leads to a larger gain in size. So it's more of an aesthetic gain than a functional strength or endurance gain. Now, these 2 types of hypertrophy are not mutually exclusive. There's always a little bit of both, but you can tip the scale in one direction in the favor of one instead of the other, depending on what kind of workout you're doing. If that was too complicated for you, forget it immediately. So, then we get to type. So what type of exercise? Well, we know it's resistance training, and so really, as long as there's some kind of resistance, it's okay. It could be from machines, from free weights, from tubing, elastics, your own body weight, a pack of books, a bag of rocks, an old lady who wants to cross the road, whatever you need that provides resistance that allows your muscles to work against and get the training effect you're after, then that's the type you're looking for. So, here are a couple details and concepts that you want to keep in mind if you're planning your resistance training program, or you want to keep these principles in mind as you're going through it. So first, progressive overload, then 48 hours rest, specificity principle, individual differences, and then talk about, machines versus free weights and what's right for you. Progressive overload. Here's a bit of a mix between the concept of overload, the overload principle, and the principle of periodization, which we've already seen in a previous chapter. And so the idea is that if you are used to carrying your purse around all day, then carrying your purse around in the gym or doing repetitions of lifting your purse is probably not going to get the training effect you're after. So in order for you to experience gains, whether they're strength gains, endurance gains, or just general fitness gains or hypertrophy, you need to expose your body to a load or a demand that goes above and beyond what you're used to dealing with. Now, progressive overload basically means that if you go with a heavier weight, well, eventually your body will become accustomed to that, and you'll have to increase the weight again, because or else you'll stop this sort of plateau, you'll stop making those gains. A little saying or an idea that helps you figure out when you're ready to increase your weight is the 2 for 2 idea. So this is if you can do an extra 2 repetitions on your last set of a specific exercise, 2 workouts in a row, then that means that you're ready to increase the weight. For example, if I'm doing bicep curls, so I'm just bringing something up to my shoulder with my hand, I'm carrying a weight, lifting it up, and I'm doing 4 sets of 6 repetitions because I'm focusing on strength. And on my 4th set, on my last set, I do 6, and then I feel like I can do some more, so I put in an extra 2, so I do 8 on that last set. I feel pretty good about that. That's okay. Next time that I go to that workout, so maybe I did that on Monday, next time I go to that workout, maybe it's a Thursday or a Wednesday, I go do my workout, and same thing, on the last set, on my 4th set, I do all of my repetitions, my 6 repetitions, and I feel like I can do a little bit more, and I do those 2 extras. Okay, now I've done my 2 for 2, because I did 2 extra repetitions on 2 consecutive workouts. That means I'm ready to increase the weight for that exercise. So next time, maybe I'll lift up a heavier weight. And that might mean that I'll have to decrease the amounts of repetitions I do. Maybe instead of 4 sets of 6 repetitions, I'll have to do 4 sets of 5 repetitions with this new heavier weight until I'm accustomed to it and can go back to 4 of 6. So that's progressive overload. Next, the rest principle. And the rest principle is really important. You can shoot yourself in the foot if you don't, figuratively, if you don't abide by it. Your body needs 48 hours rest to recuperate from a very intense resistance training session. What does that mean? Okay, it means that when you're working out, you're actually creating micro tears in the muscles, and those little tears, that's a little bit of damage, and your body needs to repair that damage, and when it does, it repairs it and makes it a bit stronger. That's how you get the gains that you're after. Now, if you don't give your body time to do that, you don't give your body time to recuperate, well, then when you go to work out, you're not really going to be able to perform as well as you could have. You're going to increase your risk of injury or hurting yourself, and you're not going to get the gains that you wanted, because it's sort of like laying the next set of bricks on a house without the mortar below having dried out completely. Right? The foundation's not ready and you're building on top of it. It's not a good idea. So you got to give yourself 48 hours rest. That doesn't mean you can't work out every day. It means you can't work out the same muscle groups every day. So if I did bench press today, then tomorrow, which would only be 24 hours rest, if I do bench press again, then I'm in the danger zone a little bit. So maybe tomorrow I'll do squats instead, and then the day after, which will have been 48 hours rest, then I can go back to my bench press if that's my plan. Okay, so that's the rest principle. Next, we have the specificity principle. Okay, this is also sometimes brought up as the SAID principle, S-A-I-D, because it's easy to remember. It's the principle that you develop specific adaptations to imposed demands. You're not going to get better at sprinting by doing chin-ups, and vice versa. And so the idea is the muscle groups used, the energy systems used, and the ranges of motion used are the things that you're going to improve. And so your whatever exercise you do is very specific to the gains that you'll experience. Next is the idea of individual differences. So everybody's different, and they will respond accordingly to the same types of workouts. The same stimuli will have different responses, and those have to do with muscle fibers. There are sort of different muscle fibers, type 1, type 2, type 2A, 2B, and we can talk about those more in detail if you want to, but we're not going to go over them right now. There are differences in terms of sort of joint mechanics and just the geometry of your skeletal system, as well as hormonal differences. Differences in a lot of different hormones, most notably different levels of testosterone, can make it harder or easier for you to gain muscle. In fact, testosterone plays such a huge role in putting on muscle that it makes it particularly hard for women who typically have lower levels of testosterone than men to put on muscle through resistance training. Which brings us to a really popular myth, or a very common myth, and that is that women shouldn't do weight training, that weight training is for guys only. And this is so far from the truth. Very wrong. Weight training is for everybody. Now, what you can ask any sort of meathead guy who's been trying to put on weight and do some bodybuilding how easy it is for him to put on weight. It's really hard, and he's got the advantage of testosterone on his side, which is like the thing that makes you put on weight and put on muscle. Now, a lot of the sort of misconception here is sort of some women are scared that they'll go and do some weights and then they'll get bulky all of a sudden. Well, it's really hard to get bulky, especially if you don't have high levels of testosterone. In addition to that, weight training can be a really effective component to a weight loss program, or more specifically a fat loss program. So that's because of the concept of EPOC, which is excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or more colloquially called afterburn. So the afterburn effect is that within the 48 hours after you do your resistance training, same as the rest principle, your body's recuperating from that exercise and repairing your body, and you're still revving at a high gear, sort of. That's a good way to visualize it. Think about it. And because of that, your body is using up more calories, more energy during that 48-hour time period after your workout than you would have used if you hadn't worked out. So with that taken into account, with the energy expended in your workout and the EPOC, or the afterburn effect, with that taken into account, resistance training actually burns more calories than an equivalent amount of time and intensity spent in cardio. So we often think cardio is the solution to weight loss. Well, maybe resistance training needs to be part of your solution also. Last thing we're going to talk about here is the difference between machines and free weights. So what's right for you? Now, I'm a little partial to free weights, which include barbells, dumbbells, medicine balls, all kinds of free weights. And here are the advantages and disadvantages of free weights. Is that typically when you're doing free weight exercises, you're involving more than one muscle group, so they become what is called compound exercises, which are typically more functional, so they can translate easily into the real world into functional strength. Also, you can do a variety of exercises with a very limited amount of gear when you're using free weights. So those are some advantages to free weights. Some disadvantages, though, is that they do require technique, and if you don't have the proper technique or you haven't learned it, then they can be difficult to use, but also it can actually be a little bit dangerous because you can drop them or you can hurt yourself. Now, machines, on the other hand, are really easy and safe to use. I mean, they're easy in the sense that they don't require technique. You still have to work hard if you're using them properly. So you sort of sit down on the padded area, you hold the handles, and you do what the picture tells you to do. You move the weight pin down to whatever weight you want to lift, and you just go. So in that sense, they're great because they're very simple and easy to start doing. The drawbacks are that oftentimes you're doing a very isolated type of movement. You're isolating one muscle or one muscle group, and you're working on that, and that's great, and you're still getting the physiological benefits of resistance training. But the gains that you get might not be so transferable into real life. They might not be the gains that help you in your performance or sports life, or just sort of functional strength, if we could say. But they are great because they're easy and simple to use and not very intimidating. So they're a great place to start. You got to decide what's right for you and go ahead and be active and get your workout on. So if you're new to resistance training and you're not focusing on any performance aspect, you're just doing general fitness, then you want to make sure that your workouts are full body workouts. You want to make sure that you hit opposite muscle groups. For example, if you worked out your chest with some sort of chest exercise, then you want to do your back as well. If you worked out your quads, which are the front of your thighs, then you want to do your hamstrings as well, which are the backs of your thighs. That way you don't reduce the risk of developing injuries, and you don't develop any crazy muscular imbalances or imbalances in your body. So, another thing you want to do, and this is something that a lot of people don't do, and to their detriment, is you want to keep a log. Very important. Keep a log of your work. Not this kind of log, obviously, but write down how many sets, reps, and weights you did of each exercise that you did. Keep that. And not only will that help you be more organized in your workout and give you more direction and help you be more efficient with your time, but it can also motivate you by letting you see your gains over time, because it's hard to remember, well, how many repetitions of what weight did I do that exercise 4 weeks ago? It's really hard to remember that, but if you have it written down, you can progress a lot better in your plan, and it can also let you know when it's time to increase your weight and things like that. So very highly recommended, keep a log or journal, very important. Another thing that's a good idea is to develop some sort of ritual, something that makes the workout automatic, so you don't have to go and force yourself to do it and have this big debate in your head every time if you're going to go work out or not. Make it automatic. You go to the gym at a specific time, you get your warm-up in, you do your dynamic stretching, you go and you go through your exercises, and then you do your cool down. You've got this routine, this ritual that you go through. That can be very helpful. Always focus on proper technique. So So you want to make sure that you're using proper technique so that you don't hurt yourself. This is especially important if you're using free weights or anything that you could risk hurting yourself with, because you don't want to do that. You might get a little too focused on the numbers, and it's important to understand that you do want to lift heavy weights, or you do want to express sort of a heavy load or work hard, but you want to do it within the confines of proper technique. So don't sacrifice technique just to finish your sets. If you get to let's say you had to do 10 repetitions and you get to number 5 and you feel like you can't really do the movement anymore without sacrificing technique, then switch to a lighter weight. Go to a lighter weight and then finish your reps. That's okay. It's always a good idea to do all of your reps to finish your sets, but that doesn't mean you have to do it while sacrificing technique. If you do that, then you really risk hurting yourself, and it's not worth it, because then you can't work out after that, and what gains you were trying to achieve by lifting heavier weights are going to be lost because you can't go to the gym for 2 weeks because you hurt yourself. So in that sense, sometimes less is more. So don't be a melonhead. Start lifting. You'll feel some immediate benefits right away, and you'll get a lot of benefits in the long run too. All right. So that's our presentation. Presentation's over. Go pump some iron till the cows come home. You know what to do. Spread out your workouts throughout the week so that you're not working out 2 days in a row. If you're doing full body workouts, get the rest in. Make sure you're doing workouts that you enjoy doing, and have some fun with it. It can be really fun. It can be really motivating. Don't go in there with a sorry attitude. Go in there, have some fun, challenge yourself, and be a better you. Ciao, everybody.